Hello, I'm Cast, and this is my 2-loop clear run of SonSon, one of Capcom's earliest arcade games. I believe the second one they ever made. So directed by Yoshiki Okamoto, who also made Gunsmoke, one of my favourite games of all time. And he has a YouTube channel, so I'll link it in the description. So this is a lane-based horizontal shooting game. You can freely move left and right, but you can only hop up and down between lanes by tapping up or down. And you got a shoot button, which I'll press in a second. There you go. There are enemies, like these guys, who run horizontally for half a second, then hop up and down towards you, then repeat. And there are those fish that hop up and down that I just shot. And this game isn't really about memorization, it's just about learning to deal with each individual enemy type. There are items to pick up. Most of these items I'm picking up, these scoring items, they're worth like 20 points, they're nothing, they don't matter. But there are some items, like these bamboo shoots that I'm about to reveal, which are worth 2,500 points each. I know it said 1,000, but you get 500 points for revealing them, and then you gotta wait for them to grow, then you get 1,000 points for picking them up. But if you pick them up on the exact frame that they finish growing, you get 2,000 points instead of 1,000. So that's why I was like timing my pickups for them there. There are these POW items, so I'm about to pick that up, waiting for some enemies to spawn, and then boop, deletes all the enemies on the screen, turns them into point items. And points give you extra lives, extends, and you get quite a lot of them, so it is worth caring about score, especially if you're just trying to get a 1 or 2 loop clear like me. So again, not much memorization. The goal of this game is to just learn to deal with each enemy's behaviour. These guys here, they throw spears at you sometimes if they're on the same floor as you, but other than that, they're the same as the other walking guys. They walk towards you horizontally for a second and a half, then they hop up or down towards you, and then repeat, and that's it. These things, you just gotta shoot them a whole bunch of times. They give you a decent amount of points, so you can go shooting them for score. Yeah. The bats, well, you can tell they go up and down in a sine wave. Those green fish that hop up and down, it's easier to shoot them at the peak of the jump. Those dragonflies, they hover into place, they wait for half a second, or a second or two, I don't know how long, and then they fly towards you. So you can either shoot them while they're waiting, or not worry about them. I just took out a wall there. You'll see these wall mini-bosses every so often. They're pretty simple. You just gotta hop up and down, shoot all the little skull-shaped walls of the guys behind them, and then go through. They get harder, and there are plenty of them in the game, so I'll explain properly how to deal with them next, because we're about to go into the other boss that the game has. Just these 3 guys. For the most part, you can just stand still and mash the shoot button to take them out. Because they just, they appear in front of you, you can shoot all projectiles in this game when they're in front of you, so the enemies that are horizontal, like directly horizontal from you, are usually not much of a threat. So more enemies here. We introduced those 2 bees, which I just shot these guys. They're a nightmare. They don't really try and stand in a particular lane, they just kind of home towards you. And then these are the other types of enemies that are hard to deal with, these guys flying around in circles. So yeah, that's what it looks like if the dragonflies fly at you. You can just get out of their way and it's fine. So now I think I've shown every single type of enemy in the entire game. So I can kind of explain how to deal with them. So these guys that move towards you, you can either just let them run off screen like that, or you can stay away from them and lure them to come up to you so they're on the same horizontal level as you and shoot them that way. These guys, I got super lucky with that one particular dodge there. That's the luckiest dodge of the whole game. Don't know how I didn't get hit. But these bees, you can either lure them like that so they get horizontally lined up with you, or you can go to the very corner of the screen and try and bait them off the screen, or you can bait them to the top or bottom of the screen. Because if they accidentally fly off the top of the screen, fly off the bottom of the screen, fly off the edge of the screen, they'll just despawn. So these guys again, they're very much like, they're not really a threat at all. These guys here, the regular guys walking at you, because as long as you're not standing directly above or below them at the exact time that they hop up or down, and again, it's very predictable, walk for 1 second, hop up or down, repeat. So as long as you're not standing exactly above or below them when their walk to the side timer runs out, they're not going to hurt you. And that's pretty much it in terms of enemy behaviours. You just got to kind of survive as long as you can. Dodge enemies, pick up bamboo things if you remember where they are. Okay, next wall boss here. and actually start explaining these. You've got to take out these skull wall pieces as soon as possible. These guys spawn and shoot bombs at you, which is kind of annoying, and that's the real threat, is these guys spawning behind you on your left during these boss fights. As far as the guys behind the wall, they're not that threatening, because as long as you're facing right and shooting, they're not going to hit you, because you're just going to take out their projectiles. So the real threat is, can you, suppressing fire, stop them from shooting you by shooting to the right at the same time that someone's behind you on the left. That's kind of where the only threat comes from with those bosses. Hey, there we go. And again, throughout the whole game, those guys on clouds with the axes, those mini-bosses, they don't get any harder. They just keep throwing them at you. Like, spoilers, the final boss is just them again, and they are no more threatening at the end than they were at the start. So yeah, those fish, they're easiest to take out if you shoot them at the peak of the jump, because, they kind of hover in place for a second. And those dragonflies, they can only fly at a few preset angles, so they're not going to completely home in on you. So you got to kind of pay attention to which angle they're flying at to make sure you're not about to run into them. Hey, it's that boss again. Again, not really much of a threat. After a while, they will start flying towards you. But if you're mashing that button pretty quickly, it's fine. So I do have autofire on. I've got 10 Hz autofire, or like 9 Hz autofire. It's pretty slow, whatever it is, but it's pretty easy to mash too, because you can just use multiple fingers. I'm just saving my hand. So I was waiting for more enemies to come on screen before I hit the POW there. Turn a whole bunch of them into items, and then I didn't manage to pick up all the items, so probably didn't need to do that. And again, just positioning myself horizontal from these enemies, waiting for them to come up to me. It tends to be a lot easier to hit those walking enemies if you wait for them to come to you instead of jumping down towards them. And again, these coins, kind of chill out, grab some points. And that's pretty much the game, to be honest. You gotta constantly be making the judgment call of like, can I pick up... Oh, so when you see a fruit next to a sign like that slice of watermelon that gave me 8,000 points, those fruit actually give you, enough points that you want to care about them, but the random fruit, like, that's just laying on the ground kind of gives you nothing. So that's the game. You want to be making judgment calls of like, can I defeat this whole wave of enemies? Because enemies only really give you points if you defeat the whole wave. And you want to be making judgment points of, a judgment call of, can I grab that fruit if it's, the fruit that actually gives points, or do I want to leave it? And again, just shooting these coins for points. So the other thing about these wall bosses is, when they start spawning walls on the very left of the little fortress thing, like that one at the top, and there's two that I took out, those can be a bit more of a threat, because, they're like, the entire space that the enemy projectile can move before it hits you is covered up by a wall. So they're a bit scarier. Because you kind of want to position yourself as far away from those bomb throwing guys as you can, just to lower the chance that a bomb will hit you before you manage to shoot it. So really, if you're paying attention and you notice when a boss is coming and you hear the boss music, which I didn't, because I foolishly turned the game volume down while I was playing this, very bad mistake. But if you can hear when the boss music's coming, you really want to just machine gun down any of the walls on the very left of the fortress as quickly as possible, and then it makes it much easier to deal with everything else. So I placed myself too far to the left of the screen there, and made those enemies walk off the left of the screen and despawn themselves, which is kind of a pity, because those enemies are very easy to deal with, and you kind of want to take them out like that for the 1,000 point bonus. Oh, I didn't actually manage that because one of the enemies fell off screen. That's unfortunate. So if an enemy despawns, then you don't get the bonus for taking out the full wave. You've got to actually defeat the whole wave yourself. Like that, there you go. You do hear a little sound once you've successfully taken out a wave. So I'm just kind of standing in the middle of the screen, letting that bee circle around me, which is a bit awkward. But it's okay. And those are the main judgment calls you make in the game. Oh, especially with the other thing I didn't mention, with like those enemies that move in circles. Oops, got kind of crushed there, surrounded with those enemies that move in circles. Like that, those little circling dragonflies, or with bats going up and down in a sine wave. You also kind of want to make the call of, do I think I'll be able to take this wave out, or would it just be easier to avoid the entire thing and just be like, okay, do I just want to live on the bottom half of the screen now so I don't have to deal with these guys, or do I think I can shoot them? And yeah, I shot a few, then I got scared and just decided to move to the bottom of the screen. Messed up again. So, this game does give you a lot of extra life. You get an extra life for 20,000 points, and then an extra life for 80,000 points, and then for every... I got very lucky then, I died, I deserved it, it's fine. And then an extra life for every 100,000 points afterwards, so 180,000, 280, 380, and so on. So, you get about 550,000 points in a run, so that's like 7 or 8 extra lives throughout the course of a run. Or throughout the course of the first loop, I should say. Which is pretty cool, it's chill. So that's the reason that you care about points, is that you really do get rewarded. And that's why the reason why I'm not really worried about a boss. So yeah, again, just machine gunning down these 2 on the left as soon as possible, and then moving right up to the top. There we go. So even though all 5 lanes still had walls in them, it's much easier to deal with now. Because I've given myself much more space between me and the bomb throwing guys on the right. Yeah. So the big difference between this and most arcade games I've played, like, Gunsmoke, Metal Slug, most shooting games, especially shooting games, I guess, it's like there's very little in terms of memorization here, because there's 2 types of boss that they just repeat over and over again, the wall and the 3 guys on clouds. And the way you beat the 3 guys on clouds is you just mash the attack button, so there's nothing. And yeah, we're running up to the end. If you can see that little... Sorry, I should have said this at the start. You see that little 3 on the rock at the top? That's counting down from 20, and when it counts down to 1, you're at the end of the loop. Oops. It's just a bad jump down by me there. I mispredicted the angle that dragonfly was going to move at. And you can shoot all projectiles out the air, so... Oops, that was close. You can shoot all projectiles out the air, so it's kind of chill, as long as you're And all projectiles in this game do just move horizontally. So as long as you're on the same level as someone else, as another enemy, it's pretty easy to stop their projectiles from hitting you. You just kind of hammer that fire button. Which is why, again, the way to deal with all of these guys that just walk is back off, let them approach you horizontally. Because they just can't do anything about mashing the fire button. And again, I picked up these items here when I probably should have been getting ready to take out these walls as the bosses appeared. So yeah, phew, just about manage it there. And again, once you've taken out the left row of walls, everything else is a lot easier. And this is pretty much the end of the game. I think they just start throwing the guys on clouds at you at the end of this loop. Yeah, I'm just mashing. And there is a pretty big difficulty spike between this loop, loop 1 and loop 2. Oh yeah, this music that's playing is just like the hey you did it, you got to the end of the game music. So there's no more enemies here, you just kind of grab some items and finish the game. I'm still mashing on that fire button, absent-mindedly. There's literally no reason to. There's no more threat. And then you got the Buddha statue, you grab the scroll. Congratulations! Just 1 congratulation per loop. If you want those congratulations, you gotta defeat 2 loops. So second loop is a pretty big difficulty spike. By which I mean they start spawning bats on the left of the screen instead of the right of the screen, and they spread them out way more vertically, which makes them kind of scarier. I don't know if they change other things, that's the big noticeable one. But after this second loop, the difficulty stops getting harder. They do eventually stop giving you extra lives though. I don't know if they stop giving you extra lives after 1,000,000 points, or after a certain number of points, or after finishing 2 loops, because you tend to get 1,000,000 points about at the end of the second loop, so it's hard to tell. And here you go, here's the thing that makes it harder, is that bats start to spawn like that, spread out vertically throughout the whole thing, throughout the whole stage, all 6 lanes. And from the left of the screen. So you can't really hug the left of the screen anymore, you want to kind of stay in the centre of the screen from now on. And because the bats are all spread out, you can't just stand in one place and easily take them all out as they get to the peak of their sine wave. They're just a lot harder to deal with. So I think if you set the dip switches on the arcade mode to hardest, you can just play this loop right from the start. Capcom Arcade Stadium, one of the scoring challenges, like Special Challenge 1, I think, locks the game to the hardest dip switch difficulty from the start, which I believe is this. Like, it just puts you straight in this loop. So, you know, once you get decent at the game, if you don't want to play through the first loop, you can just do that, start straight from there, and there's like a leaderboard for it and everything in that game, which is cool. Oh, yeah, these coins in the hardest loop, they start sort of moving back and forth horizontally like that. Which is, if you're not expecting it, if you don't know what's going to happen, then yeah, it's pretty annoying, but it's not that bad. Okay, and boss coming up. This is the first one of the game, so there aren't any... Oh, there are walls on the left. I guess I forgot about those, but... Yeah, because... Oh, that's it. There are no enemies that spawn on the left, so you can just hug the left wall during this boss and you're fine. Yeah. Then again, I backed myself too close to the left wall. Wasn't really thinking. The bosses do fire... That's the other thing. Yeah, the bosses do fire at a much higher rate, so it's a bit harder to mash your way to killing them. And you know, you might have to like hop up or down at the last minute to bait them out of your way. Again, these bees, by far the most threatening enemy in the game. I think if I didn't shoot that one on the left, it would have flown off the top or bottom of the screen. Oh, and annoyingly, those bees are the one type of enemy in the game that don't give you any bonus points for taking out the whole wave. Like, if you take out both of them, it doesn't care, it doesn't give you anything. So, you know, all the more reason to just avoid them instead of stressing out too much about being the one to shoot them. So I should talk about why I even played this game. You know, partially because, again, directed by the same director as Gunsmoke, one of my favourite games. But in part because I love real-time grid-based games. Like Mega Man Battle Network's one of my favourite games. And then, you know, Mr. Driller is kind of semi-grid-based and that kind of thing. My game Chessplosion has basically the exact same grid-based movement as Mega Man Battle Network. I'm making another game right now that has, again, the exact same hopping around on a grid and real-time movement. And that's great, it feels great, but one of the downsides of that kind of movement is that if you're running around fast in an action game hopping around on a grid, it's kind of hard to do things that act differently based on which way your character's facing. Like, you know, if you wanted to have, like, press a button to shoot forwards, it's very annoying, because if you're facing left and you want to face right, you've either got to have a button you can hold to turn around on the spot, or, like, you tap the right button and you hop a whole grid square to the right, and, like, it's just a little bit annoying. Like, I got cornered there. You know, it's a lot of fun to have an action game takes place on a grid, but it means you can't really do things based on which way your character's facing. You know, the same way as like if you had Legend of Zelda, you can just tap up or down to change which way you're facing and swing your sword the way you're facing. Can't really do that on a grid, but this game's kind of an interesting hybrid, where up or down is kind of like on a grid, because it's separated into lanes and you get all of the bonuses that come with that. Like enemies being able to block off your path by just taking up grid squares, by taking up all the lanes and making it easier to see whether or not something's on the same lane as you. But you also have the benefit of not being on a grid, where, you know, you can just tap left or right in this game to quickly change which way you're facing, and it doesn't feel weird. So yeah, this is it's a very interesting. Like, it doesn't look like it looks like just a little platformer that's auto-scrolling, but to me, at least, it feels like a very interesting hybrid between grid-based action games and regular free movement action games. Super interesting. I might have to borrow that idea in the future. So yeah, those dragonflies become a little bit more threatening if you do let them move instead of going up to take them out, but if you just kind of hold your position, and once you get a vague feel for like the few different angles they can move at, it's not that bad. They're not like the worst thing to deal with. I remember when I was first learning this game, because I played this game for about a week. I don't know how many hours if I added them all together. Not much. Like, it's much less painful than like Gunsmoke or any other, you know, difficult arcade game. Like, this is just like a a week or so of practice. But yeah, when I was first playing, one of the big mistakes I'd make is I would always try and take out those dragonflies. The ones that fly into position, wait a bit, and then move. Because I was like, I can't let them move, that's terrifying, they're going to home in on me, but it's not that bad. I got very lucky that I didn't get hit by that guy then. But yeah, once you get used to, you know, just getting a feel for their angle, it's not that bad, they're not too hard to avoid. And I could probably get quite a few more points by learning where all the bamboo shoots are, but I just kind of passively learn where they are by, you know, playing them over the course of the week. And then if I ran into one, I'd try and remember where it was. So I'm sure I'm missing out on a lot of them. But the thing about playing this game for score is it loops indefinitely. And there's a big difficulty spike from loop 1 to loop 2, especially with all those bats coming out on the left. But from loop 2 to loop 3, as far as I'm aware, nothing changes. You know, like I said, it stops giving you extra lives, so eventually you'll run out of lives, but... You know, I shouldn't have jumped up there. I thought that those guys would stop further right on the screen. Oh, and when you... There you go. When you respawn, by the way, you fly in, like, after dying, you fly in from the left. Ah! See that there? That little awkward little move is what I had to do because I hadn't taken out the skull wall on the left, so there's like no space between me and the guy throwing a bomb. So everything I've been doing fighting those walls is trying to avoid that situation happening. But anyway, when you die, you fly in from the left on a little cloud, and that cloud flies all the way to the right of the screen, then back to the center, then bounces left and right a bit, and then eventually kicks you off. And you're invincible while you're on that cloud. And you can shoot while you're on that cloud, but as soon as you tap a direction, you get off that cloud and lose all your invincibility. So if you die and you just absentmindedly hold the direction when you respawn, which is very easy to do if you're not thinking about it, you will just have no invincibility whatsoever on spawn, and it's very easy to chain multiple deaths on a row. So if you don't want to chain multiple deaths in a row, just let go of the stick when you die. Sit and watch, wait until you're completely safe, and then press a button. It's a nasty habit to get into. Or a nasty habit to have, rather. You gotta unlearn. So again, a lot of guys walking on the left, a lot of guys walking on the right. That's kind of scary, but the only thing that really makes it scary is that those homing bees. I couldn't just walk to the edge of the screen and bait the homing bees off the screen because the edges of the screen are being covered by bad guys. So like the only real purpose of all those guys is they're not really a direct threat, they just make it a little bit more annoying to dodge those two bees that were flying after me. And yeah, I just kind of waited for them to fly horizontally in line with me, took them out. And that's kind of it with bees, like line them up horizontally or get to the very top or very bottom of the screen and try and bait them off the screen. Especially the bottom seems to be easier. So I get greedy and I go to the top of the screen because I wanted that pineapple. Probably would have been safer to go to the bottom of the screen, but I wanted that pineapple. So I'm about to hit 980,000. Is that my last extend? Am I even getting extends by this point? I don't know. It doesn't show your number of lives past 4 lives remaining. Oops. So this is around the point where extra lives start running out, I guess. So yeah, this game, not super interesting for score, because it loops forever. I'm about to hit 1 million. Okay, I did get a 1-up then from the look of it, cool. So I guess that's the last 1-up I get. And oh, wall coming, I get to the bottom of the screen, because I want to quickly shoot down, there you go, those 2 wall sections. And then quickly shoot out this top section, there we go. So now the right hand of the screen, I've given myself, you know, more room to move to the right, which is good, because these enemies spawn on the left. Like that. Yeah. So I think people have gotten scores above 10 million in this game. Grab a bunch of points because, you know, once you've learned how to survive the second loop, which is the loop, you know, that I'm approaching the end of, once you get good enough that you can survive that loop without really dying, which, you know, I died a few times, but I hope you can see just by watching that, like, yeah, with a bit more practice, I want to be able to clear that loop without dying at all. And once you get good enough to do that, well, that's it. You just marathon it. Oops, yeah, I should have jumped later then. That was just a bad mistake. And I didn't want to move further to the right then, but enemies were on top of me on the left, so I had to let go of the stick to keep moving on my cloud then, which put me in a place where I was in trouble from the wall on the right. So as you can see, really, 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 really important, especially later on, to take out the leftmost walls in this boss fight. Give yourself more room to be safe without hugging the left wall of the screen, because the left wall of the screen, or the left edge of the screen, really starts becoming dangerous. So yeah, once you get good enough to just survive these 2 loops, you can kind of go indefinitely. And like I said, some people have gotten 10 million plus, which is kind of scary. Because if you're getting like, 500,000 a loop, that's what, 20 loops? And each loop's like 15 minutes or so. Oh my god, what is that, 5 hours? 5-hour run of this game, I guess. Which, not my kind of thing. I definitely prefer arcade games that just end instead of endless looping. I'm glad that pretty much every arcade game developer past about, 1986, 1987, decided that was the way to go. So if you do want to play this for score, I think Capcom Arcade Stadium clamps all of its leaderboards to 1 loop. So, it has a play the first loop leaderboard and start playing on the second loop and play that once leaderboard, which is probably the way to go. Because, then, like, taking risks, getting all the bamboo shoots, getting all of the items, taking out every enemy wave instead of just ignoring them and letting them fly off screen. Oh, that was a really silly way to die there. Taking those risks actually matters because, they don't just become completely, what's the word? The fact that you just you just have to survive a long time, that just kind of overwhelms everything else. Overrides everything else, I suppose. Hey, a bonus. So yeah, if you do want to play this game for score, I do recommend... Hey, there we go. I do recommend just putting it on hardest or playing on Capcom Arcade Stadium, either one. Oh, this game is free on Capcom Arcade Stadium, by the way. Like, you can just download it for free. You don't even need to get the game. But yeah, I do recommend jumping straight for the second loop. Or if you're playing on something else that's not Capcom Arcade Stadium, just go into the arcade dips, which is set them to hardest, and play that way. But the cool thing about this game is that, you don't really need a whole lot of save state practice. Like, maybe you need a bit of practice to learn how to deal with the walls and learn that, hey, you gotta shoot the leftmost walls as soon as possible. But aside from that, really the thing you're practicing is just how to deal with each specific enemy type. And you can just do that in a full run. So if you want just kind of a chill arcade game to play, like again, I went from scratch to doing this in a bit less than a week, and I certainly wasn't practicing it for most of that week. I don't know my total play time, but it'd be pretty low. Fun little arcade game to learn. And if you're specifically like me and weirdly obsessed with grid-based real-time action games, then, well, this is a little experiment into half grid-based, half not grid-based. Which is kind of interesting, because I'm not a big fan of, like, beat-em-ups that do the whole grid-based thing. Like, Guardian Heroes, Phantom Breaker, that kind of thing. Not really for me. But for some reason I like it. No excuse for that death, I don't know why, that was just embarrassing. For some reason, I don't mind it when this game does it. Probably because the enemies have contact damage, I guess. So, like in a lot of beat-em-ups, you can just, like, completely stand in place and let an enemy hop onto you and hit them, but at least in this game, you've got to get out of their way horizontally when they're hopping from lane to lane. Which is cool, because like it doesn't really feel like you can abuse moving between lanes. So like, hey, there we go, waiting for some enemies to spawn so I could use the power. It doesn't feel like you can completely abuse hopping back and forth between lanes to be hard to hit in this, which is nice. So yeah, I don't know if they were thinking of this as an interesting experiment between, free movement action games and grid-based action games, but that's how it feels to me. And again, these bees, they are the thing that makes the game difficult once you get past the basics of learning the enemy behaviours. Everything else just exists to make it a bit harder to run away from the bees. So I don't know how much longer I'm going to survive, I forget, probably not that much longer because I'm on my last life, it's not giving me extra lives anymore. And like I've made a lot of silly mistakes, so surely I'm going to make another one. There you go, you can see from those dragonflies flying there that like there's like a preset number of angles they can fly at. Like they could fly at that kind of diagonal angle, they could fly straight down, but they certainly couldn't fly anything in between those two angles. They do make the interesting choice of not letting any of those dragonflies fly straight horizontally. So if you're standing completely horizontal to them, they'll just fly diagonally instead. Which is a bit weird. It means you're completely safe from them if you're horizontal for them, but I suppose you're always completely safe from any of your enemy if you're completely horizontal from them, as long as you're mashing that fire button. Oh, that little frog guy, there you go. Or lizard, I should say. If you fail to pick up one of the big point items that's on, that's like next to a sign, like one of the big the billboard ones, you'll see that little guy pick it up and run off. Which is very cute. I don't know if you can do anything about it or if it's just like a little visual thing to be like, hey, you missed that item. But hey, it exists. So, another wall, really want to take out those three as soon as possible, the one at the bottom. There you go, okay. Now I can chill a bit. And again, I was completely safe letting those grey guys circle me. Because, you know, they will always move to the side, step up, move to the side, step down, and so on. And I think the grey guys move exactly 1 second, and the guys with the spears... That's an embarrassing way to lose my run, that's fine. And the guys with the spears move for exactly 1.5 seconds, so once you get a feel for it, they're like really not a threat, you can just dance circles around them. So that's me, Cass. Yeah, I did it. So that is SonSon. It's a lot of fun. Give it a try.